What if I told you that I had a secret weapon? This secret weapon is responsible for transforming the way that I show up for my audience, whether it's in a podcast, a YouTube video, or over on Instagram. And because of what I've learned from this individual, I've been able to attract even more people and get more people to lean in and want to work with me. Well, this secret weapon of mine is none other than Tracy Goodwin. And she is the guest today on my podcast. Tracy has an incredible gift. She has the gift of unlocking your most true, authentic, and powerful voice. And what I hope that you'll glean from this episode first and foremost, that if you are any type of coach, teacher, or content creator, just how valuable, just how crucial your voice is as a tool that is either going to magnetize your people to you or, and unfortunately this is what it does for most people, repels them. In other words, transform your voice and you can transform your bank account. And in today's episode, you are going to learn exactly how you too can do that. So let's get into that interview with none other than Tracy Goodwin right now.
Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and with 17 years online, I've built my business to over $12 million in sales per year. And this is the first non-business business podcast that shows you how to apply the principles of spirituality, energy, and mindset to grow your business beyond your wildest dreams, all from the inside out. This is the Mind Your Business podcast. Well, hello, Tracy Goodwin in the studio. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my gosh, I'm loving being in the studio.
It's brand new. You are our second guest in the brand new studio, and this is your first time in Sedona as well.
Yes.
I'm really excited to dive into today's conversation. You've had a tremendous impact on my life. You have then created a ripple effect and impacted countless number of my students and clients over the years, and it's been so amazing. I call you one of my secret weapons, but I don't like that word because I don't want you to be a secret. So we want to keep getting the word out because I think you are in the top 5 most gifted people that I've ever met in this world and industry of stuff that we do. So what is it that you do, Tracy?
And here's the hardest question of the entire interview.
Yeah.
The thing that I don't do is coach voices. The thing that I do is transform lives from the inside out of entrepreneurs, sales professionals, and leaders with the vehicle of the voice. I help them by moving out sounds that are actually in their voice that they don't even realize are there, that are costing them 30 to 90% of their next level of success.
Yes.
I move those out so that they truly can, with this manifestation tool of the voice, create the life they want.
And I understand why for the type of work that you've chosen, or if it's chosen you to pursue, it can be really hard to describe it, because what I heard even in you sharing it is a label of a voice or vocal coach would be a massive undervaluation of what you actually do. When we work together, the immediate first thing that I noticed instantly with just little stuff that we did is people were like, dude, your podcast is fire recently. It's so good. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm saying the same type of content. I didn't all of a sudden get another type of guest or another format. I was just doing business as usual. And if there was one thing I had changed, it was I was being a little bit more deliberate and intentional with the integration and application of things that I had learned from our work together. And then, of course, I had this experience where I lost my voice for 2 weeks. And that was the first time I really got what level of value that and importance our voice is as a tool in everything that we do. So I want to start with this question. I think this might make sense for people. If James, as a great teacher, which I think I am, I have to give myself some compliments once in a while. And I give 2 students in the same niche with the same offer, the same webinar, like just follow this format and each of you go live, and they each go live to 100 people each. So as many constants in this scenario as possible. Is there a world where they could both be doing everything right and one of them knocks it out of the park and one of them tanks? And what is that? Why is that? What if I did exactly, because we get that. I did exactly what you said. I followed the script. I followed the process. Is this not a big missing ingredient for people?
It is the missing ingredient. It is the everything. And this is what people don't understand. And I think this is a great source of frustration for these people that are looking around and going, well, Judy's crushing it. I'm doing the same thing she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But what's different is all the pieces of psychology of the voice. Your insecurities are coming out in your voice. You're up in your head. There's no movement in your voice. I don't know who you are. I can't connect with you. Everything comes down to the sound, to be the thing that pushes us over the edge, meaning over the edge going, that's my guy right there.
Right.
That's the one. I have to pick the one. And you know me, I'm a researcher. I can literally tell you how I quantified that ideal clients are seeking sounds. You both have the same product.
Whether they know it or not.
It's all going down subconscious.
Yeah.
And that's really the most important thing I think about the work that I do is I'm not playing a conscious game. I'm not playing a let me add on more. I'm playing I need to get inside your head and understand the why behind that sound that is repelling that buyer and making them go and buy from the other person. Because the tragedy, James, is I see people, they lose the sale because of sounds that the person wants you to be. I want you to be my person. I'm already in your world. I'm watching your work, but I'm seeking sounds that give me the yes.
Wow. Another way I'm hearing this is something I've said for a really long time is that to be in this business, to be the online brand, you have to have mastered how to intentionally manifest. Like you are constantly either attracting or repelling. And I've always said it's with your energy, your presence, and your content. But what I'm really hearing from you is probably one of the greatest factors is actually what the tool of our voice is doing. And it's either going to attract closer or repel people. And I have to connect that dot to the stat. I don't know how accurate that stat is, but we've all heard this one that 80% of communication is nonverbal. I mean, isn't that where it all starts? And so much of that is the tonality. But you're even saying it's just deeper than that.
It's way deeper than that.
Yeah.
That's scratching the surface for sure, but it is way deeper than that. And I could just give you an example right now. So I'm going to give you a demonstration.
Okay.
Because this, you know me, we've known each other for years. I talk to you like this every time I talk to you. Yeah. But now I'm going to be professional, James, because I'm on your show and I want everyone to realize that I'm professional. So I'm going to put on my professional voice mask. That's driven by an insecurity. And we have all these insecurities inside of us. I call them wounds, and we can certainly talk about that at some point. But we start accommodating through sound without realizing it, because from the day we're born, we are told, be anybody but you. Be anybody but, I mean, even as an infant, the infant squeals or cries, or a little 1-year-old or 2-year-old squeals, and mama doesn't like that. And the subconscious instantly goes, okay, that was bad. That's going to get me kicked out of this tribe. I can't get kicked out of this tribe. I know what we'll do. We'll talk quietly. And we do this our whole lives. So we're altering and altering and altering and altering in little teeny tiny ways so that when we show up to do it, we're delivering the altered version far too often. People don't want to buy the altered version. Now more than ever, even the know, like, and trust concept, my data can debunk that. People need connection and authenticity. That's voice. So if I'm being what I think you want me to be here today on your show, I've just blown it because I don't really even know what you want me to be, but I'm avoiding being me.
Yeah. Okay, I want to ask what might be a tough question here, but maybe not, because I get that and I've seen the impact of that. But there seems to be this thing with like, okay, so what I'm hearing is, and we're going to get into the core wounds. We have these core wounds and these decisions we've made of who we are, who we're not from a young age, and then that manifests through the voice, and that would repel people. But also, most people have those core wounds as well, even on the recipient side. So I'm this is just a fascinating question for me. So, but you wear a mask to hide the wound, and I wear masks to hide my wounds as a listener, but I'm not going to resonate with your mask, even though that's something that we would in that case have in common. Hey, we're both wounded. In other words, I want to see if you can speak to, I would assume a lot of healing allows for a truer, authentic voice to come through. Is that in a world that it makes you less relatable and less able to connect because here you are as the online expert, the coach, the podcast host that's had all this growth where that all of you shines through, and most of your people are like, I'm just this scared, wounded, mask-filled person. Do you understand what I'm asking?
I do, and I'm so excited about this question. It's really a rubber band ball.
Yeah, okay.
What I want, what we're really chasing is, so I hear 7 layers of sound. And in that 7th layer of sound are all the sounds that are really us. They're still there. They weren't ever taken away. They were just covered up with all these, well, let me be this and let me get the words right. That's a big one. The second I go to get the words right and say the right thing, now I've got a different sound that could repel someone that wants somebody that can speak with authority. Okay, so we've got all these wounds, and we've got these sounds are still in us. The goal is we heal the wounds and we bring up the purity of the true sound, meaning I can reveal to you the depths of my suffering through sound, but I don't drag you through it.
Okay, yeah. And there's just more truth behind that. There's more realness. So even if someone isn't there themselves, it's like your voice is now, well, I was there. So it still kind of has the echoes of been there, done that, and here's where I am now.
And I'm choosing to share that with you because, and this is a really important piece. I call this the voice experience. And this is, I think, the big game changer, because a lot of times entrepreneurs will do their offer, which, by the way, sell me something brings up the absolute worst in a voice. It will bring out every single worst sound working against you. But entrepreneurs will think, well, I've got to make them understand. I can get them there. I can get them there. I'm going to get them over there. They don't even know where over there is. So we're not
they being the audience.
They being the buyer.
The buyer, yeah.
And I have tested this. It's mind-bending. It's like a no-nonsense person can be misrepresented in that sound. The buyer can think, I'm not good enough to work with him. I'm not good enough to work with her. So see, again, we're back to how is the sound being processed? Yeah. Is it coming from a character trait that's working against you? Is it coming from a wound that's working against you? So what we do want is I want to share the whole journey with you in sound, because I want you to hear the compassion of the depths of who I am. Now, my dominant sound is let's go. Right. And I want you to hear that sound because that's part of what the experience of me is. But it's not the only part of it. I'm going to sit in the trenches with you because I have felt that pain. And I need to reveal that to you in sound. And we don't, because we We try to hide it all. That's why I call it voice masks. I don't want you to know I failed. I don't want you to know I struggled or suffered. Everything's great. Everything's wonderful. And then you're going to buy.
I'm happy.
Yeah,
I'm so
happy.
happy.
Everything's wonderful. And then you're going to buy. And then they don't buy. And we're going, why didn't they buy? Well, because they said, they don't get me.
Yeah, and people don't even know that this is happening. Like you said that, and then you said really quickly, it's like it's unconscious. So people aren't going, well, let me hear how they say this sentence.
Right.
They're just left with a feeling and they may not even consciously process it. They're just going, because I hear it all the time, that person just doesn't resonate with me. That's not my person.
That's it.
And we think as the personal brand, it's like, oh, like, is it my style of what I wear? Or is it like the content I talked about or how much I deliver or not? And it's like, yes, that stuff plays a role, but this becomes something so much bigger.
So much bigger. And I see it time and time and time again. Well, the launch failed. Well, I got to go back to the messaging. I've got to go back to the offer. I've got to change the price. And maybe you do, but I'm sitting there hearing needing to prove in your voice,
which means
as a
even
repellent.
when you do all that,
you're getting the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the people that are your people. And I'll tell you what's really fascinating is when we remove all these voice masks and we bring all these sounds up of our lived and shared experience, I'm going to tell you what's fascinating in the data. The people that aren't ours, they don't come around anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were attracted to the wound.
Wow.
Going,
okay,
I can
that kind of
manipulate.
connects back to my question is
Yep.
like, aren't you still attracting? Okay, wow, this is blowing my mind. It's like, it actually doesn't mean having a mask is repelling people. It actually could just attract the wrong type of person.
It can be both.
And it can be both.
It can be both.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
so
blowing my mind.
It's pretty amazing that I rarely get my people that are gonna resist. So my non-people are the people that are going to constantly go, that's not what's happening. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not like that out there. I don't get them.
Yeah.
I don't get them because they.
Well, and if you do, just tell me where they live and I'll take care of it.
Yeah. Well, because, and this is huge. It's like subconsciously that buyer is going, oh, I can run over her. Or whatever they're picking up in that sound. So these entrepreneurs that are getting these people that aren't their people and they're struggling with these people that aren't their people, I'm immediately sitting there watching this go down going, let me tell you about the holes in your voice that they're trying to poke through.
Whoa. Wow.
And when we eradicate that, your people are, the number of times, and I know you hear this too, the number of times that people say, I don't know, I just knew I had to work with you.
Yep.
It's because they heard it.
Or, this is actually my favorite, I've heard what you said 1,000 times, but when you said it, it finally hit me.
Yes.
I'm like, that's the power of this.
Yeah.
You're saying the same thing as somebody
Yeah.
else. They already know it.
Yeah.
But when you say it.
Yes. Well, and you're a perfect example. I mean, if I can just brag on you for a minute.
I don't know. Do we have time? Let me check with our producers. We do. We have some time.
Okay, good. Thanks a lot. I want to brag on him a minute. I mean, the number of people that because they know that we work together, that come up to me and tell me how captivating you are is stunning. But it's not even just that. It's exactly like what we're talking about. You are healed, but you go to the depths of that place, of that shade in your voice that says to that buyer that has lost hope that you understand.
Yeah.
You play your full range of sounds. I call it the notes. You play all the notes.
And I can't really, just like how you can struggle to put the 10-second version of what you do in a perfectly curated paragraph or something, I couldn't tell you how I do that. I don't know how I do that. All I know is that there is no resistance to do it.
Right.
I know that. I'm like, I can sit here and I could tell you about one of the most painful moments of my life. And I could also tell you that I was talking to Mel on the previous episode. I went to bed last night with more gratitude than I think I've ever felt in my life, So I just, I don't know. I think I've embraced the full range of human emotions and kind of understand like you're not getting out of this alive, and you're going to have painful experiences, but I've had a lot of them where I learned a lot and grew a lot, and then you realize it helps people. And so I've just said like that it becomes, in a context of service, it becomes easy to reconcile all of that for me, I guess. It's like, if my story could make a difference for someone, then why don't I make sure I do a really good job of sharing that story?
Well, and you play all those feelings. You play all those notes. Even back when we worked together, that's literally some of what we did. You were still doing the movie back then.
Yes.
And we looked at, okay,
that was,
what's
let me
the feeling there?
Brag about you. This was one of the most, we met at an event with Brandon Lucero, and I knew pretty quickly, I was like, whoa, Tracy's got something here. And we started working together. Before I brought you on, I was like, let's work together first. And you, on our first or second, I mean, it must have been the first call, you said, okay, I'm going to take you to this episode, 23 minutes, 17 seconds. You said one word. It was a one-word sentence. And you said, what happened here? And I went, holy shit, how did you do that? The person asked me a question I didn't want to answer. How did you do that? And you knew with a one-sentence answer, it was not a question I wanted to answer. And I felt on the spot, and I gave the answer.
Yeah.
Oh my, and I was like, I don't know what you did or how you did that. And that was amazing. Because it was, I don't think anything had thrown me off more than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was so caught off guard, and I just left it in. I didn't really care.
Yeah.
But
I found it.
You found it, in needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
I mean, thousands of words spoken in an hour-long episode is one word, and you're like, bam, that's it right there.
Yeah. And this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Is I went, when you said yes, and we talked it
word.
through, I
Yes.
said, you red flagged the whole thing for me. And I'm always listening from the voice coach perspective and the buyer's perspective. And I said, there was lack of commitment. Something was behind it. There is a percentage of your listener that could decide they can't trust you if they process that sound that way.
Yeah.
And this is where when we can, we
Yeah,
talk
you were
about
like, someone is gonna
Somebody.
lose you right here.
30 to 90% is what we're leaving behind. So even the best of the best can be leaving 30% behind over something just like this.
Yeah. Well, you're mentioning some data. You've done some research. Do you want to share any of that right now before we dive deeper with all of your knowledge?
Yeah. You said when in that big rubber band ball question, you said so many great things. And I want to break down a little bit of the research I did around that. One is everybody has a voice aversion. That voice aversion, like there's probably something you can't listen to.
Okay, so as a listener, there's a type of voice.
Yeah, like if you're loud at me, loud and fast, like if you yell at me the rest of this episode, I'm out.
Yeah.
Okay, that goes back to my childhood stories. Okay, you were talking about, you know, how we're listening to each other's wounds and all of this. So if you just yell at me the whole time, I actually did this research on a podcaster. And at that particular time, everybody in my world said, I can't listen to him. And I thought, that's strange. I can't listen to him. And I thought, why is it? He was loud. And I got into the research and I started asking people, what is it that you don't like about him? He yells all the time. Then I found out their voice stories. Their parent yelled all the time.
The listener's voice stories.
Like my mom yelled at me all the time. So I can't listen. You may be my person, but if you yell at me the whole time, I'm out. But if you yell at me some of the time and play the rest of your notes, I'm okay.
Mm-hmm.
This is why it's so important to bring in all of these notes. So that was really profound for me. And then I wanted to know, I was working with a lot of actors. This was in the early years of my career. And I wanted to prove that it was the voice played a significant role in why casting directors cast actors. Because you go in a room, I don't know if you've ever been in a room where they all look alike. You like walk in the room and it's like freaky because
50 Tom Cruises all
totally
going for the same
totally.
part. Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
like, why did they pick this? Why did they pick the one?
Just close your eyes and pick one
right?
at this point.
You know, again, it's back to this, what you were given the example of the entrepreneurs. If they're all talented, if the chemistry's great with all of them, does the voice play into it? So I did this research on casting directors while I was in New York teaching for Mike Nichols' school. And yes, voice played a role in it, but it was only like number 3. But what that led me to was I took the study then to entrepreneurs. And this goes back to some of what we've talked about. What I found was entrepreneurs, buyers are seeking sounds of the experience they want to have. So if yelling is that aversion, and there's no other sounds, even if you're my person, I won't buy from you because I'm seeking certain sounds. So it's like if I wanted to hire a health coach, I do not want anybody yelling at me because that will make me cry. But I will manipulate over cupcakes. So I got to have somebody with a backbone.
Right.
All of that I'm going to decide as the buyer based on what I hear
need,
in their voice. So that's just some of
this
the
is
research.
really fascinating because there's also been a surge over the last couple of years on social media of people doing faceless content and talkingless, no talking content. And there's someone I saw who exploded on Instagram. They've never spoken once. They don't have a single video of them talking. It's all text on the screen with B-roll and unbelievable growth. And I have to assume it's like a similar concept of like the person who reads the book then goes and watches the movie and they're like, the book's way better. And it's like, because your imagination's way better most of the time, right? That's usually the case. It's like in my mind it was this whole thing. And so when they don't have the voice to reject, they might implant their own voice of what they need. And yes, that can build the audience. But now when they have to go work with the person, they're going to be like, whoa, okay, this is not who I thought they were.
And I hear those stories weekly.
Wow.
She was amazing. Oh my gosh, it was a nightmare. And I will tell you, so we have a severe buyer trust problem. Voice plays a significant role in that. So that's a buyer trust example. In a way, you portrayed something and you then delivered something else, right?
Yep.
But again, it goes even deeper. So we've always been told, know, like, and trust. Get them to know, like, and trust you, you're good. I started hearing people throw out, and I'm a real stickler for I need it to be right because I feel a tremendous responsibility. What I'm going to put out in the world, it's going to be right. And we started to get into this space where we were seeing people go just kind of copy people. And it's 3 seconds of trust and 15 seconds before they'll trust. And it's 27 seconds. And I went, I'm going to do a study because I want to know exactly when the buyer trusts. It's 2024. I want to know. The last study I did on that was 15 years ago. I want to know when they decide they're going to trust, when they decide they're going to buy. So I did a big research study. I brought in 17 test voices. They didn't even sell anything. They simply introduced themselves. I had them do recordings, and then I brought in hundreds of people to listen to those recordings.
Wow.
We asked them questions, and I collected all the data, hundreds of pieces of data. In under 3 seconds, we determine if we trust. In under 13 seconds, now, we determine if we're going to buy. But what blew my mind was those no longer intersect. We used to be able to say, if you can get them to trust you, they're going to buy. The data showed me 65% of the people said, I trust him, but I'm not buying from him. So I went back into the research to find out why. And it goes back to this connection and authenticity. And it plays into this people having been burned.
Right.
What I'm finding out right now, this one's going to really blow your mind. Retrospectively, the participants that I'm studying right now are retrospectively able to go, I knew I was going to get screwed. And do you know what that's causing them to do? That's causing them to lean in more to hear your voice. So the Instagram with no voice, it's on the way out.
Right.
Because I have to hear, are you going to betray me like that
Right.
other one did.
Or it'll go as far as you said with the first. Trust was 4 seconds. You said
Trust was 3
it'll,
seconds.
It'll go as far as that.
Yeah.
But then not buy, because I can imagine some of these people who have massive audiences, but then it's like they couldn't close a sale
Yeah.
without having to use their voice.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, never mind. Okay, but I want to
Yes.
go. I want to go back. Thank you for sharing all this data and doing that. That's amazing. But I do have a silly question.
Okay.
What does trust mean to the participants in this study?
Okay, let me think.
Like does
yeah.
it mean I trust that this is a good person, or does it mean I trust that this is the person that can solve this problem? I see those as two different
Yeah.
things. So what does trust really mean in this context?
In this study is that this is a good person.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because when I go and do all of my marketing, I say the real know, like, and trust
Yeah.
is they need to trust, and this is where you're going to connection, in my opinion, connection authenticity, is they need to trust that you're the person that can lead them to the solution,
Yes.
take them, coach them, help them, assist them.
Yeah.
But that's not what these participants
No.
do. They're just like, are they a good person?
Are they
honest?
trustworthy?
They
Are they honest? Are
trustworthy
they
as-
reliable?
Are
they
there
going
morals and a good? Okay.
Are they going to screw me
That's
over?
Great.
Yeah.
Right.
So they really do go
Because
together.
you can have a very honest person and you can watch their content and be like, this person has no idea what they're talking about, or they don't have, like, they're a good person, but they don't have enough mastery
Yeah.
to teach me what I need to learn.
Yeah. And what's so interesting too, and see if you agree with this, is then you can also have the one that has the mastery that is trying to prove how fabulous they are.
Right.
Or it comes across like banana, 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 and they're never even heard. So they really do go together. I think that's
Yeah.
what's so powerful. I will never say, don't worry about the messaging. Don't worry about the offer. Never. But what I need people to understand is that's the beautiful gift. Their voice is the wrapping paper.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, so if I can ask this, what does authentic, detached mastery sound like?
Well, it sounds like you. It sounds like I am not trying to control an outcome. I'm not trying to be what I think you want me to be. I'm not trying to decide what you're deciding right now. I'm not trying to hurry up and get to the other side of this because I'm not comfortable with you looking at me, and I got to hurry up and get this over with because I don't even know what I'm talking about. It sounds like I'm going to be right here with you, and I'm going to take you on a journey. And I'm not trying to accomplish anything other than connect and be in the conversation, because I've got something really cool that I would love to share with you if we get there. But I'm not even trying to get you there. We're taught in sales so often, get them to the outcome.
Right.
Be what they, do this, do that, do that. Real authentic mastery is when you say something and I go, yes, oh my gosh, yes. And so many people go, well, I could never do that because they might think I'm dramatic, or I am dramatic. So I'm going to
So
show
that's
up.
authentic. Yeah.
So that's what it is,
Wow.
is that I'm not worried about your judgment.
Yeah. It really is so much detachment.
So much detachment. I go into everything trusting it's mine.
Uh-huh.
Of course they're going to buy from me. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah. I mean, I hope they know that that's the right decision for
Yeah.
them, but it's up
Yeah.
to them to figure it out.
Because guess what happens? So that takes all the weight off my voice. And if I go into it going, well, I don't know if they're going to buy because, last week I did the webinar and nobody bought, and I don't know, I'll deliver the offer like this. Do you want to sign up for that?
No. Yeah.
No.
It's you've already admitted defeat, and so you're either going to now go get needy and pushy and desperate, or you're going to become resigned.
Yeah,
And those are the two places I see people
that's it.
go. They either give up halfway through, or they they come on too strong for people.
Yeah,
And both are
both.
no bueno.
Yeah, and those are repellents. So we were talking about
Yeah.
repellents. So you might think of repellent like the pushy guy, the needing to prove, the let's go, that.
Yeah.
Okay, if you want to buy from someone that you can go, yeah, she knows what she's talking about, but I don't want to upset anybody because I have the people pleaser mask, that's going to be a repellent to you.
Yeah.
So we just do all this altering in all these sounds. And I mean, science has proven the subconscious determines 36 things about us in under 30 seconds. The second I hear your voice, I determine whether you're a dog lover.
36 things.
36 things
in
are
30 seconds?
in under 30 seconds.
About whoever we're
Whoever
listening to.
yeah. So when you start talking, your listener, your buyer is subconsciously determining. Well, I don't remember all the things. It wasn't my study, but one of it was dogs. One of it was education,
Right.
higher education. One of it was country, city. I mean, it was truly a fascinating study.
But to go back to that big question I asked, because this I don't want us to go too much down a rabbit hole, because this could leave your topic and go into something else, which is really fascinating. I don't think I've ever really talked about this on the podcast before, but is there also the experience where the more authentic maskless that you're bringing through, that you could actually be triggering people a lot that are still in a lot of their stuff? Like, why does she seem so confident but relaxed? Does that become a thing? Do you see that people get triggered in a way by your light that's coming through?
Yes and no. One of the things that I have found, and again, it goes back to who are your people. I can use my own examples, because I actually had a conversation with somebody about this in the mastermind when I came
in Boston.
And it was a very confident person, and we were talking about. I said, "There's no threat here. There's no threat between us, right?" And she said, "Yeah, because you're very confident. You're standing in authority." So it goes back to that. This is what I'm seeking. I want that. Oh, there's ease there. There's confidence there. There's authority there. I want that. But then we also have to roll that piece back in about, I'm not just everything's good. What else am I? So I might have a moment of passion where I get real excited about it, and I really want this for y'all, but I don't stay on that note. So I'm going to say, no, that wouldn't happen, but then I'm going to turn right around and say, yes, that would happen to the people that aren't my people.
Right. Like, maybe a great example is, and I know this is a very common theme, all your friends and your neighbors and all that stuff, and they see you growing, and they might get triggered by you. And look, she thinks she's hot shit now because she's all blah, blah, blah. And that's a very common thing. I have a lot of people sharing those stories of, like, now that I'm making money, I have family that they're mad at me or whatever. It's so sad. So it could happen to them, but you're saying not the people that are the people you're meant to work with, that are right fit, that are sitting there praying for you. Yeah. And you're the answer. That makes a lot of sense, because I have been. So I didn't want it to. Thank you. That was the sufficient answer, because it's a long rabbit hole. Yeah. I mean, I share this usually like in the mastermind and stuff like this concept that I was taught by our shaman about the idea of what's called a black mirror, which is that the more healing and light that you bring, the more that can act as a black mirror, reflecting back to the unhealed aspects of other people that interact with you. And so it becomes louder for them to see where they aren't healed in the areas that you have. But I can see contextually where that's not somebody who's coming to you for the right reasons, that really is looking for your guidance and help. 99% of people wouldn't have that. It's the people that are like your friends that are like, you've changed, man. Yeah. Hey, you're different now. And they're like not really assimilating that change properly. So,
well, and I'll give you just a tiny little example. I was doing a corporate group the other day, and one of them was like, "Oh, I guess this is the most amazing thing. And I learned this, and I learned, just all into it," where she might have been the one that would have shut down. Like, if I'd had a perception, she might have been the one, but she was all into it because she so desperately wanted to get better. And then another one came in, and one thing that was said that shined a positive light on somebody else, and she did this the rest of the training. That's in her. And I think we have to really, so this is why your story and my story is why I think it's a yes and a no. Yeah. Is that we really have to stop taking other people's stuff on too as entrepreneurs. Absolutely. And I see my students do that all the time. Well, in the chat they said, "Okay, you stay in the zone." Yeah. But in the chat they were, okay, you become the observer of that. Why are you giving your power away instantly?
Exactly.
So I think it's both.
Yeah. No, that definitely makes sense. Okay, so I want to dive into the core wounds, and we can look at that. But let me preface by saying, I think I'm setting you up for an easy answer from this one. Can someone fake it? Like, can you fake it? Like, you're like, oh, I've got this core, desperate, deep wound of I just need to be loved and accepted, and then Tracy shows me, oh, here's somebody that doesn't have that in their voice. Like, could someone mimic that and actually get fool people on an unconscious level, or do you think the unconscious just always knows?
All day long.
Yeah.
And let me tell.
Wow.
I've got a specific
So there's
example.
you can't fake this. You can't chat GPT your way out of this.
Well, you can, but
okay.
So I'm going to give you a specific example of someone I worked with who had been told she had to get dramatic at one part of her offer.
Uh-oh.
And I got there and I said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
Because I could tell it was inauthentic. Now,
because you had to.
Yeah.
You forced yourself to.
Yeah. So was this woman successful? Yes. Did she start converting at 78% higher after our work together?
Wow.
Yes. So it is, can you be, like even the guy that was yelling, was he successful? Yes. But look at what he's leaving behind.
Right.
And that really becomes the
It
question.
really is. It is gas on the fire. It's
yeah.
And it's also like part of why I call you a secret weapon is like no one else can. This is the one thing that no one can copy.
Right.
Like someone could go take all your social media content, all your emails, and go through your whatever webinar, and they can copy you. And they are not, I'm sorry to say, they're not smart enough to realize that you're doing something different. Even with all the same, I mean, they could have the same, I don't get it. I use the same fonts and the same colors.
Yeah.
And it's not working like it did for that person. It's like, well, you copied the wrong things.
Yeah. Well, and they have. And that's why I can't stop, you've got to find your own way.
Yeah.
But I believe we've all been born with a gift. This was mine.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I believe every single person was put on this planet with a gift. Find it.
Yeah. So crazy because I had Mel on. He said the exact same thing.
Oh, did he really?
Oh, yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Let's talk about some of these core wounds.
Core wounds. So I knew I heard them years ago, but I didn't really identify them the way I identify them now. You just
naturally could hear when someone's talking like, oh, wow, they're struggling with.
So I always knew I could hear voices, but I thought everybody could hear like I hear. And I did a training and a man did a role play and I went, oh, I get it. You fell in love with some girl and you moved down to Texas to be with her, but she broke your heart. And now you're not sure what you want to do. You're thinking about moving back to Maryland, but you like it here. And so you're a little confused right now. And he was like, how did you know that?
So did you?
I heard his broken heart.
Okay. And can you describe that for me more out of my genuine curiosity? Like, because you're not hearing it, it's a knowing for you. It's just, It's
a knowing and it's a sound. And I was actually talking to Mel about this in relation to my book. That's been one of the holdups on writing my book is they'll say, well, okay, what does that sound like? And I'll go, I don't even know if a lot of it I can describe, but a lot of it is I could hear his heart was broken. I could hear the wound of rejection, which sounds different than the wound of judgment, which they are completely different sounds in my ear, and I can identify them instantly. And so that was the beginning of my 10-year study on is what I'm identifying, what the buyer, the listener, is subconsciously processing.
This is so fascinating because in talking with our shaman, one of the things he said is that information is all encoded. And so he'll say like, ancient symbols and stuff, they're encoded with so much more data than what's even available in language. Like language is constrictive.
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is someone can say, I'm starting over in California, and you have the ability to unpack one little bit of information, realize that that was encoded with a whole heartbreak and a love lost and a starting over alone. Wow.
Yeah, I know when somebody's getting a divorce. I know when somebody's pregnant. I know when I can hear it.
It's amazing.
And it's, is that a part of my work? Yes and no.
You're
But
like a little fortune teller on the side.
Right. I mean, like I am the best party trick at any given party.
The voice whisperer, though, really.
Totally.
Wow.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I kept seeing patterns, James. I kept seeing, so I'll hear the initial sound, and I believe everybody hears the initial sounds, which this is when we do typical voice coaching, we add on another sound. Okay, I don't want to add sounds on. I want to take away. I want to know what is the why behind the why behind the why behind the why behind the sound. And at the very back end of every single sound, do you know what I find? Lack of worthiness.
Yeah.
Every single time. And then the in between is a bucket of fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, sense of belonging.
Yeah.
And I hear it, and it comes from, well, my second grade teacher, well, my ex-boyfriend, well, this boss I had. And the subconscious takes that in, and the subconscious wants to protect our identity. Our voice is the representative of our identity. So I could tell you stories the rest of the night. The boss says, why can't you get anything done on time? And the subconscious goes, don't worry, I've got this, and starts changing the voice, because now we've got to create this sound to protect that wound of, if I use my voice, I'm going to be rejected.
So the mask is really on the heart.
Yes.
Filtered out.
Yes.
And manifests through how the sound comes out of our mouth.
Yeah, because the voice is the orchestra of the heart.
Yeah. This is wild, because the one thing you noticed, like I had noticed it, but I didn't put any significance on it, and you pointed out to me, and it was such a mind trip, and it was like my biggest thing to work through, and was you were like very confused. You're like, wait, what happened? Like, I'm listening to your podcast episodes. You're nailing it here. You're nailing it here. And it's like, what's this Facebook Live over here? Why is this so different? What, were you having a bad day or something? And I was like, I know what that is. When I have the headphones, I can hear myself. And if I know I can hear myself, then I know others can hear me. And if I don't have that feedback, it was really hard. Mm-hmm. And we got down to this whole thing of needing to be heard. And it was not until, because when we figured that out, my dad was still in the living. And so I've had a whole beautiful, experience of completion with him, and which is an episode for another time. And it was unbelievable and just amazing. And his passing, and I was noticing that would still come through this, because it would manifest in other ways. If like I would hear myself saying like, people aren't listening to me, or they're distorting what I'm saying, and I'd have to call people out and say, like, I never, like people would say, well, James said, but I never said that. Mm-hmm. You're not listening to me. Why aren't you listening to me? And I was able to get into a lot of deep silence and just go into a recapitulation, and I was able to go back and just re-experience my childhood, and my dad didn't listen to me, or at least that was the perception. Mm-hmm. And I was just the kid. I was just a kid. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, that's great. I used to wipe your ass, and I wasn't heard. But I was also, I knew I was, and I'm not trying to get cocky. I was like, I knew I was smart. Like I could figure things out. I told my dad, great example. I told my dad to invest in a company as soon as it came out called America Online. Okay, kid. Okay, right. And it would be like that, like my whole life. And I was able to go deeper with that and realize him not hearing me had nothing to do with me. That's the male pride and the male ego, and from his dad and everything. And I was able to just let that go. And I've realized how that little thing plays out in so much of like, I need people to hear me. I need to be heard. Yeah,
because the voice keeps the score.
God,
just like the body keeps the score. I can tell when people have done years of therapy.
Of course, right.
But the wound is still locked in the sound.
Wow.
Because that's where my word comes out. I've got to have that protection.
Yeah.
And it always goes back. Every piece of it goes back to usually before we're 5, And then we have a lifetime of it.
Of reinforcing
it and adding another.
See, it's true. It is true because it already got created. So I'm just gonna keep manifesting. Okay, so I'm curious about this. So like you work with someone and boom, that's where we get, and it's like behind that is I'm unworthy. When you're working with a client, what happens then? Like, are you like, well, you need to go to therapy, or are they able to start to heal that from that place, or is it like, well, you're screwed and you're always going to feel like this? Like, take me there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I'm not anti-therapy, but I don't think we have to do a deep dive on it. I think it is so far forgotten, and the habit in the voice. Sometimes people don't even remember the stories. Until I start asking questions. So I'll hear a sound and I'll start asking questions. I'll say something like, do you ever feel like you need to prove something? Because I hear it. And the person will go, well, why'd you ask that? Well, because I can hear it in your voice. Oh my gosh, I spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to my father. Okay, well, it's still in your voice. So what we have to do is, all we need to do is write a new story.
Yeah.
Because it's really not true. And so we just have to spend a little time talking about it. And really one of the big tools that I use is getting people out of the past. Because if we stay in that past, that's where the wound is. And if I'm talking to you right now, but I'm thinking about that time that my dad said I wasn't good enough, it's going to affect how I talk to you right here, because I'm going to feel like I'm not good enough.
Wow.
And I'm going to start having to, be a hot shot in here or something. So we have to rewrite that story. And then I plug in a tactic, which this might be like voice technique. I'm going to give you a tactic, and you're going to say something to me with that tactic. And I'm going to go, boom, we just tapped into your real voice.
Wow.
You're going to use that tactic. It's going to override
and
that
then
story.
We're
going to override the story.
Muscle memory to
that's
that.
right.
Okay. Let me ask you, I'm going to go in a little bit of a different direction here, because like what you just described, well, first off, quick answer, yes or no, and maybe it isn't a quick answer. I'm worried I set myself up for that one. Is it 100% trainable what you do? Like, could someone else do it? Like, how much of this is like, this is really a gift that is hard for someone else to just, like there are certain musicians that have perfect pitch and, an ear that, yes, you can develop an ear, as I have over the years of learning guitar, but I'm like, there's some people that just, you're born with something there.
Yeah. I think it's a yes and.
Yeah.
I do think it was literally a gift I was born with, but I also have had long-term clients that say to me constantly, I go in when I'm talking to my people and they're going to go do an offer, and I'll tell them, nope, you sound like you don't believe I'm going to buy. So that's one of the things on my list for this year, is to see if I can teach people to do it.
Well, and because what I was asking is like, I'm also just curious, like you just described like a revolutionary approach to healing and therapy beyond actors, personal brands, speakers, and coaches. Like what you're basically saying is there was another timeline where you could just have an office and you say, come on in, take a seat.
Literally.
Just start talking for 5 minutes. Okay, that's all I need. Here's what's going on here with you.
Yeah, and that's the work.
Yeah. What has you, personal question, what has you choose the people that you're working with today? What is it about? Because you knew, you've worked with my sister, so I know you guys had a connection where you were working at, what was it, the New York? Wherever she went to.
I taught at a school that she actually went to.
So you have a background in working with actors.
Yeah.
Tell me is it just because you fell into it? Is there I'm just genuinely curious.
How I worked with actors?
Or why is there a reason why like the big public figures is the majority of the people you work? I mean, you're not doing this as like a therapy for just anyone off the street.
So I worked with actors in the early years because I thought, who am I to be a voice coach. And I don't mean that like as a negative towards actors. I focused specifically on dialects. I taught actors dialects, and I took dialects away from business people because that's what we did 35 years ago. And I mean, I would be getting like calls from Fortune 500 CEO. This was Yellow Pages days. And they're like, will you come coach our voices? And I'm like, I wish this voice stuff would stop, because I literally thought I had such imposter syndrome. And so it was really just became this progression. And I've just been really open to being led. And so I started in dialects until I figured out the dialects are created by the psychology of the voice. And that was the beginning of the whole thing. And then business people started coming to me. And I moved away from actors, and I really got into business people. And then I got into corporations. And then I was called out to Hollywood to work on television shows. And so I've just been guided. And of course, I do truly love entrepreneurs the most, because I feel like I can do the depths of the...
Most of them are the most... It's fair to say they're the most open.
They're the most open.
Growth and
they're the most open. And I want to help people. I want to...
And they get to help a lot of people.
That's right.
So it's a big ripple effect.
So I mean, I do still work with a lot of different... it's like, they always ask the question, who's your ideal client? I'm like, everybody in the world.
I know. Everyone. So another curious question. I love asking these questions because I've like never asked you these questions in person, like randomly hanging out. So I'm like genuinely fascinated by this. Can you hear your own voice? Could you hear the imposter syndrome when you had it?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't believe in having people listen back
to their own stuff.
Yeah, most people train it that way, and I don't believe in that. And you know why I don't believe in that?
Tell me.
I believe we hear our wounds, and that's why we hate to hear ourselves back.
Wow.
We hear the pain and suffering, and we're reminded of it, whether we're conscious of it or not. So we might consciously go, I talk too fast. But what's happening really is there was that time when that boy said to me I was stupid in second grade, and that whole room laughed at me, and that teacher shamed me, and I had to get out of there. We hear it.
That just blew my mind. Oh my gosh, because you don't hate the sound of your voice while you're talking. But then so many people are like, I hate hearing myself talk. I hate when I hear my voicemail.
Right.
You know, like I heard my voicemail. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I can't watch my videos. And I used to have that experience.
Yes.
And then there was a time where it was so neutral. I'm like, I don't know what that is. It feels like a disassociation. I'm like, this is me, and I'm just watching myself. And I will watch myself to try to be like, how does someone experience me for the first time?
Yeah.
But there's such a neutrality to that. Just blew my mind. We hear our wounds.
I believe
that's
we hear
why,
our wounds.
Yeah, so that's why we hate
it. That's why I teach my people immediately. You are not allowed to do retakes. You are not allowed to watch your videos back. You are not allowed to listen to anything, because you cannot be subjective. And what the goal is that I'm going to teach you to draw from within.
You cannot be not subjective.
You can't be not subjective. Yeah, and so you're going to listen to it, and you're going to perpetuate the wound for the rest of your...
fixate on that.
That's right.
And it's like, that's the thing we're trying to get rid of, and you're just going to keep... And you're going to solidify that. It's that's how I sound.
That's right. And so scientifically, there's a reason why we hear ourselves differently. But again, I became fascinated with this. Scientifically, our sound is vibrating against the bones of our face, but not when the sound comes out. So I studied that research, and I said, I don't think that's it. I think it's we hear what we don't want to hear.
But not when we're talking.
Right.
Whoa. That is tripping me out. Because I had a whole lifetime of experiences of hating the sound of my voice.
Hating the sound of your voice.
Because how I got started in this industry, Tracy, is I loved video.
Yeah.
I loved making video. I went to film school. I did the advertising, all that type of stuff. And I couldn't find anyone in front of the camera. Mm. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be behind the scenes, and I wanted to find a Tracy Goodwin back then and just make them famous. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to do everything behind the scenes and just blow up a brand. Couldn't do it. There was the universe wouldn't let me. It was like anyone who would try to come in that I would try to present, they would flake out, fall away, couldn't hack it, wouldn't do it, got over it, hated it, whatever. I finally said, fine, I'll do it. And I just started posting video after video, hundreds of videos. And on one hand, I hated it. I hated watching myself. I loved making the videos. I hated watching myself. And it was so hard and uncomfortable, but I would like put myself through that masochistic torture of forcing myself to do it. And now I have an experience where like, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah.
I don't, it's just total neutrality. I don't care. That's me on the internet. And people, like I hired a handyman recently at my house, and he's like, oh yeah, my wife and I found you on Instagram. And I'm just like, oh yeah, sorry. You probably got sucked into a funnel of watching 100 videos of me. Sorry. And it's just this funny thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I also have a bunch of content on the internet. I don't even think twice of it. It's such it's a trip that it's such a contrasted experience in the same lifetime, you know?
Yeah. And that first version, that's the version everybody's getting hung up with.
Right.
And you're getting hung up on the wrong thing because you're going to listen to it. I'm going to listen to it. And then I'm going to do it all different. And no, you don't. Because you're listening to it and you're going, nobody wants what I have. Nobody wants to hear me.
Whoa.
And so then we have people that have a visibility problem. And I know you know this.
Yeah.
They don't understand why they're not building their business. And you're like, well, where have I seen you lately?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I mean, they're not going to come knocking on your apartment door going, hey, is anybody in there that can sell me something? We have to solve this because we have to be comfortable being seen. And that's a huge percentage of people are not. They are, it's like,
and you cannot, when 90% of the people I work with are doing the same thing we're doing.
Yeah.
We're selling coaching and courses and your personal brand, and you have a specialization and expertise. There is no way around it. There is no way. You cannot, I don't want to be seen, and I've got all these core wounds, but I want $1 million business.
Yeah.
Being seen and heard and taught, and it's like not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And even I could go so far as to say, we have to really look at that too. How are you showing up when you're showing up? Mm-hmm. Are you talking so fast to get the webinar over with that nobody could even grab anything that you said? So we've got to, but isn't that the whole work? Isn't that, I think that's Earth School, James, is that we're here, I got to heal this wound.
That's what I love about what I do. And you're doing the same thing, which is like, I kind of feel like it's kind of we're doing like a Trojan horse thing. Where it's like, we're kind of tricking you into like growing a business so that you can just grow as a person. Because it's like, that's the, we got you. Now you have to grow as a person, But it's like, that is absolutely a prerequisite for all of us. So it's like, that's what's so beautiful about it is, okay, so you want to do something bigger. We got some work to do.
Yeah.
I love that. Fascinating little side note before we get back to, I want to talk about the masks next. We've been doing this really cool thing in one of our coaching programs where I've just been challenging our students because what I was noticing a theme where they build out their whole funnel. It's like, let's say you're going to create a new course and I say, okay, we're going to create a whole funnel. We got to nail the messaging, start to finish, A to Z, like the whole thing. And they'll do it live. Like they'll do like a live webinar or live event or something, and it would tank. And then what they do next. They go either hide in a cave.
Yep.
Or completely throw it out the window
do something else.
Yeah. And both of which I don't agree with.
Yeah.
I don't. And that, I never did that. I took my father's stubbornness and I said, if it didn't work now, I'm so stubborn, I will make it work. So I encouraged that on them. And I said, frankly, if you haven't done this webinar, let's say 20 times, shut up until you do it 20 times. And we are now seeing these students that it's like the first 3, 4, 5, 6 times, it's like flat, nothing, barely, maybe a sale, maybe 2. And then we just had a client, he'll know who this is when he listens. He did more revenue in the last 30 days than he did in the 6 months prior. And so I messaged him and I go, so what webinar number are you on? He said, I didn't get to 20, I did 13. And I know that they're not changing their messaging that much. It's not like he did the first webinar and it tanked and he said, I'll start over and do it. It's sure little changes, but they're getting better, more confident, more discovering their authentic voice. And how much easier does this work become when it's not the first time anymore?
Yeah.
It's just another, and that, like, more of that detachment does naturally come in. So I'm just seeing, I say that to say, I'm seeing evidence. It's the invisible evidence, the invisible factor, but I'm seeing evidence everywhere. The writing is on the wall of how much of a role this plays in the success of someone as a personal brand.
Yeah.
If you and I are selling iPhone cases or tripod, microphone holders, like, we don't really have to worry about this too much for marketing and sales. For other purposes, of course, being a team leader, the CEO, great.
Yeah.
But you're going to be a personal brand and not get this stuff figured out. Like, good luck. Talk to me about these masks. I know you shared that at the mastermind in Boston, and that was like blowing people's minds. How many are there?
So I've just discovered a couple more.
Yeah.
And so I'm probably close to about 17 now.
Wow.
So,
And people can have multiple.
oh yeah, all you
layered.
can wear all of them, and you can interchange them. So I got the idea. Again, you mentioned a knowing earlier, and I do hear sounds. 100%.
Internal sounds. Like a voice.
Yeah, somebody can talk to me for 1 minute, and I can write a full pager on how they're being processed in the subconscious of the listener.
Wow.
Okay, so I do hear sounds, but there's also this knowing, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
And years ago, and I'm going to go back to a story I mentioned earlier, I kept feeling like this garage door was coming down when I would talk to people. It would be like all of a sudden we're talking, and then all of a sudden you're gone. And I could feel it. And I was like, what is that? So I started leaning into sound. And the first time I did this was a man that had to prove everything. He knew. I know. James, I know. Let me cut you off because I know. I want to show you everything I know. I know a lot. And he's the one that I said, well, he came to me. He said, I think I'm repelling customers. And I said, you are. And he said, well, how do you know? And I said, what are you trying to prove? And he said, why did you ask me that? And I said, because it's all over your voice. And his face fell, and he looked at the ground, and he didn't say anything. And he finally looked up and said, I've spent my whole life trying to prove my worth to my father.
Yeah.
So it was the mask of needing to prove. It was the thickest of them all. They're like an invisible armor. It was like bulletproof glass was coming down every time he felt like I was challenging him. And he had to prove that he knew so that he wouldn't look weak. Well, the buyers were hearing that as, well, we're not going to get to be a part of this. If we hire this guy, we don't get to be a part of this thing we're buying. We want to be a part of it. So that mask was blocking connection and repelling.
Wow.
So that was the first one.
Pause.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's still recording because a little thing came up and I would be devastated. We look really good. How are you doing on
I'm
time?
great.
'Cause
Yeah,
I
no, I'm good.
Keep us going.
We're still,
It says it's still recording, but
did something flash?
something flashed, but it's still going and it's still getting our audios. You talk into your mic real quick?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Is it
just a little
still?
notification. It's
Oh, okay,
good.
okay.
Okay. So you just finished the second one.
So the first one was needing to prove. And what I later put in that bucket was arrogance. You know, a lot of people don't step into confidence. You may not know this, but a lot of my people, I have to get them into confidence. They're not wanting to go to confidence because they're afraid they're going to be arrogant. And I want to tell you what's the difference in confidence and
this would be
arrogant.
great, yeah.
Because arrogant is, I'm a big deal, James. It's a sound. Confidence is a totally different sound. And I go, okay, what is this? What is this? Well, arrogance is the most insecure person in the room, but it's the motive. I'm confident because I'm deeply caring about you. I'm arrogant because I'm deeply caring about me.
Wow.
So those are all three different sounds. Defensiveness is a big one. People get defensive. You didn't like my thing. You criticized my thing. We go to defensive like I can flip my hair back. Okay, that's a mask. That's a mask of you just hit my wound of unworthiness and I'm icing you out.
Yeah.
Okay, then I got to the big one, which is almost everybody. This is 7 out of 10 or 8 out of 10 people. The mask of people pleasing. And this is where you have people turning things to questions. Everything becomes a question.
Statements.
Are we okay, James? I had a girl, she was doing that. I got that out of her voice. Her conversions went from 40 to 80% because the buyer is saying, why are you asking me? I thought you were the expert. The people pleaser mask has the most sounds in it. It has a hesitation because I'm checking to see if I'm doing a good job. It has justification. Let me convince you. Let me say it all the different ways. I'm going to say the same thing, but I'm going to say it 14 different ways because surely if I say it enough ways, I will justify why you should buy it. And I'm just going to keep saying words until I get your sale rather than dropping it down with authority and pausing while I'm looking at you.
And probably no direct call to action, telling people what to do next. Yeah.
No, so that's...
If you have time, and I understand if you're busy and you don't have the time right now. Wow.
Yeah,
that's also, sorry, I just want to interrupt because that's probably such a common one because the same nature of somebody who is a people pleaser would be someone who is caring, who wants a career and a business where it's like, I want to help people. Yeah. So it's like this double-edged sword in a way.
It's a kryptonite.
Wow.
And what's the shifter of the kryptonite? The wound. Mm-hmm. Because that people-pleasing mask goes all the way back to, I had to keep them happy in order to survive. That's where we start work. That's where I start working with safety. Is the people with the people-pleasing mask. The one what you were talking about reminded me of the I don't want to bother anybody mask. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna ask them. They'll figure it out. Yeah. They'll figure out I have an offer. Okay, no, they won't. You're not bothering them. Yeah. Maybe they want you in the room. Then we've got the mask of professional. Now, I gave you this one earlier. Yeah. I'm a highly trained professional because...
This is a newscaster.
I'm terrified I'm not. Yeah. And I don't want you to find out I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'm going to sound like I do. Well, we've got to rejig that from the interior. You're working from the wrong place. You're working from what you don't know, and you're putting on the mask. You know, again, I could tell you stories about these masks and how you shift this mask and everything shifts. Then we've got the cheerleader mask where everything is wonderful all the time. And I'm going to open all my trainings like, hi, everybody. Okay, I did a study on 7-figure entrepreneurs. That affects retention. In fact, out of that study came within the first 30 seconds, retention is set. If you're coming out of the gate and staying on that note, especially if that's not who you are, your buyer is going, can I handle this for 5 days? Right. I can't connect with her. So that's the cheerleader mask.
I've also had people that I've noticed who have that mask. They're the ones that say their launches are the most exhausting by the end. Yeah. Because that is exhausting.
It's exhausting. And it's exhausting for your listener. And that's why they're not even there when you make the offer. Because they're like, I can't really take any more.
Like, this is really funny because people like chunk up ideas and concepts and they take something that can be very nuanced and just kind of make it broad. And so you hear people talk, and I've talked about this. I've talked about how your energy, which is the same thing you're talking about, your energy will affect your launch performance. And what we mean by that is your frequency. What are you unconsciously projecting and putting out there? But people will misinterpret that to make it mean high energy. Oh, so I just have to be high energy the whole time. Yeah. I have to be the cheerleader. I have to be everything is awesome all the time. The entire 24/7 we're doing this. And they are the most exhausted at the end. And that does not produce sales.
No, because the buyer is going, well, I'm not feeling like everything's great. I'm kind of feeling like I'm in a disaster over here.
Yeah. I mean, what a great metaphor because I always thought like the cheerleader, like we had a really bad football team growing up. We were like the worst. Really? And you know, I was on that team. My brother had been played on the same team and it was bad when he played. My dad was on the boosters and so when we were younger, like football was big for us, but we sucked. And it could be like, you know, 4 touchdowns, 5 touchdowns, nothing. I mean, we were just like 0 points on the board. And the cheerleaders are like, you're like, go team, go team. I'm like, get the memo. Like we are
We're
are
tanking
awful
over here.
Yeah, and it's like it doesn't even matter
Yeah.
what's going on the field or on that scoreboard. You're sitting there going, "Go fight, win," and it was like it felt tone deaf.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying.
That's it. If I'm going to buy from you, I'm seeking to know that you get me.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to feel the feeling of not being good enough. And I deal with this one all the time. It's somebody is really caring, they're really passionate, but that sound's going sideways. And the person is processing that sound as they're going to shame me. I'm not good enough. Maybe someday I can work with them. When that's not the truth at all. But that mask is causing that sound to go sideways. And guess what? You just lost 40% of your buyers who they were looking for you.
Yeah, they opted in for a reason.
They were looking for you. They just needed to hear their notes.
Oh.
So those are some of the big ones. Some people will go into teacher voice, I'm really good when I deliver content, Tracy. Right, because it's so not about you. And they'll go into this mask of, I'm protected now because your judgment is now about the material, not about me. And we can go into a teacher voice.
Wow. Like a kindergarten teacher.
Like a kindergarten teacher. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's so fascinating.
It's fascinating. And then the things in our world cause us to pick and choose. Oh, here comes the celebrity guru. I got to put this mask on. And oh, here comes my sister who thinks that my work is stupid. I've got to put this mask on. And we spend all day shifting masks to protect ourselves. So everybody's exhausted when they get here.
Everyone's
I
exhausted.
mean, it's like, yeah, that sounds really exhausting. Kind of like that football thing with the cheerleaders.
Yeah.
It's like, and the people that they're launched, they've been the cheerleader. It's exhausting. Let's deal in reality.
Right.
And reality is
Truth.
we can have a moment of it sucking, but we can share that moment. And when we share that moment, when you know that I've experienced that because you hear it in my voice, now we have an emotional connection. You know what makes people buy? Emotional connection.
Yeah.
So we've got to stop being afraid to let you know I'm not perfect. Everything's not fabulous. But we've got to get past the fear of they're not going to buy if they know I'm flawed.
Yeah. That is such a huge thing that goes back to that needing to prove.
Yeah, it's a catalyst for mask.
And being like the perfect thing.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I mean, just to throw my 20 cents is there is something to be said of like, yeah, you do need to be good at what you do.
Yeah.
You know, and so flawed or not, like, I don't think it's a permission slip to be like, well, I want to teach people how to make a profitable business, but I've never had one, but that's okay. I'm flawed. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's
No,
a
it's
certain
not like
level
that.
of like, you got to give what you have,
Yeah.
but you know, you don't, no one's perfect. So why
But-
are you trying to be the first?
Right, totally. You're missing opportunity.
Yeah.
You're missing prime real estate. And I will tell people all the time, and maybe you see this too, they're all hung up in, I don't know all the things. Well, why are you standing on the rock of all the things you don't know? Why don't you talk
Yeah,
to
what
me
do
from
you
the
know?
from the rock from what you do? You don't have to know all the things.
Yeah.
It's like what you're saying. I'm in 100% agreement, and we've seen too much of that where I'm going to pretend like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
No, that's a lose-lose for everybody.
Yeah.
But you stand on what you know. I didn't know this much 35 years ago.
No,
I
of
mean,
course not. Yeah.
I kind of had an idea that I could hear
I
voices.
I can say the same. I mean, I know so much more just in 6 months ago. But
Yeah.
what this conversation you're saying, I think is such a big conversation because it even knocked me sideways, and you know because you were there. When I got out on stage on day one at BBD Live, and this is great because I've told this story. I think I told this on the podcast, but now we're going to tell it with a fuller version because you were a part of this. I had set the intent to inspire and play something beautiful for my listeners, my audience, as in the audience, it's a listener, it's a podcast, it's a person audience. I learned the national anthem, and I played it in the dress rehearsal the night before, and I played it 3 times in a row impeccably. Mel and my sister were there, the only 2 audience members, and they both were moved to tears by it. What? Like, and my sister, who's super gifted, she's like, I saw our dad there too. Like, it was an emotional moment. And I'm like, well, this is, and Mel was like, that was so beautiful, man. Like, and he's like, it's so cool because a lot of people have told me that me picking up this hobby has been really inspiring, whether for them to get back into their hobby or to dive into music or just to see my patience and consistency with it. And that means a lot to me. And that's why I show people on like my Instagram, like that I'm doing this, because it's fun for me, but if it inspires others, I want to do it. So I got on, 10 minutes before I got on stage, I heard a voice say, "You're going to mess up on stage." And I said, "No, I know this song. I practiced for months. I can do it blindfold, walking up a flight of stairs. How do you mess that up?" And I go out there, and the experience I had was I played the first bar, and the audience gave me a little reaction, and I left my body. Yeah. I can only explain. The only time I've ever really had this happen to me was I went skydiving. I had a huge fear of heights, and I felt like I blacked out for a moment, and then you kind of like come to, and you're like, and you're falling. So that happened to me. Like I got expanded for a nanosecond. All of a sudden I looked down at the guitar. I had no idea where I was. And I go, uh-oh. And I mess it up on stage. And that was hard for me. And Tracy is so good that she said, I forget your exact words, so please fill it in when I say it wrong. But you came to me afterwards, because I then had to give a 90-minute, I gave a 90-minute keynote to start this entire event after playing the guitar, which in hindsight probably shouldn't start the event with the guitar when it's your first time playing on stage. But she said, "You didn't let that go while you were speaking." And it was still there. And I was like, yeah, I was so hard on myself because my attachment was I wanted something beautiful, inspiring for people, because like a year and a half ago, I couldn't play an instrument to save my life. And I wanted to show that to people. And then it's like an attachment got. And you helped me. You're like, you got to let that go, because you cannot hold on to that for the rest of the event. You got to be there and be with your people right there and nothing else. And I'm like, got it. Shifted that, boom.
Yeah, you did.
Then that night, and I think one of the first people that came to me was Sophie Byfield. Beautiful soul. She's been a member of our community for a while. And she comes up to me, and she was one of the first. So I'm pretty sure she's the first one. And she said, "I just want to thank you, because when you messed up there, that was the biggest breakthrough for me, because you just laughed." Because that's what I do. I don't take things too seriously. My attachment was definitely like I wanted something beautiful and inspiring for people. It wasn't about I need to look good or have them be impressed by me. I was like, I wanted to show people like you could do something that you didn't think you could do a year ago. Because I made a pledge. I'm going to play a song on stage next year. So I was like, I want to show people what that looks like, to hold to your word and commit to something. And she said, when you messed up and how you just laughed it off and kept going, showed me how hard I am and how rigid I am in not making, and one after another, after another started coming up to me and had the exact same experience. And it's really funny because it's, and that's what that story came to mind, and you were a part of it. So I had to share it, but it was also like, careful what you wish for, because what I really wanted was to offer something beautiful, but what people found was the beauty in the flaws of it.
Yes.
And the permission to be flawed. The permission to not be perfect. And people preferred that. One person, And I don't want to sound cocky when they said this, like, finally, this fucker made a mistake.
Yes.
It's like, why we thought you could do anything and everything, and you
Yes.
finally made a mistake.
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you talking about? I make mistakes all the time. Like, what?
Yeah.
But they had more of a perception this guy can do anything.
That's right. I think, well, and I knew you were holding on to it as soon as you started talking. In that moment, I thought, I'm hoping that he's not rattled, like the moment that it happened. But within seconds, I knew it was the greatest gift to that audience.
I was totally did not expect that. I was just
because we need a permission slip that somebody that we admire and adore and look up to and as a mentor and would guides us. We have to know that they're going to make a potential mistake, and that 100% gives us permission, and we need that permission. I mean, I think that was the greatest gift.
And that blindsided the crap out of it. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And one after another, people kept
I'm not surprised
saying that, and I'm not projecting, not trying to be perfect, but I was trying to show people, I've been playing guitar less than some of you guys have been in business. and like, if I could do that, then you guys can. And that was like the message I wanted for people, but it was another one that had to come through instead.
And isn't that the cool thing about it?
It's the coolest.
Is that, I think of myself as the vehicle.
Yeah.
As the vessel.
It's the vessel.
And you got to be the vessel. You had an idea of how you wanted to teach that lesson.
Yeah.
But
and then I get a lesson too.
Yes. I mean, to me, it was even more beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would never want you to feel bad or suffer. But to me, that was, you showed up and were the vessel.
Yeah. And that rocks my own world. Because that's what you're asking for. That's when someone steps into a calling or a bigger purpose of being of service. It's like, well, in sort of in jest, like, careful what you wish for, because you'll be used for it. And that means like the good, the bad, and the ugly. Yeah. And I am here for that. So I had to sit there and be like, then that's how I'm used. to mess up on stage and like just laugh it off and not be attached to that, not get hung up on it. And I'm so glad all you had to do was give me that little pointer. And I was like, it was only like 10%, 5%. I was just holding on to it a little bit. It's not like I couldn't deliver my content after that, but it was like in the back of my head, I was like,
I could hear you thinking about it.
I'm bummed.
And I knew I had to say, you got to.
And I think it was after the first break or something.
The very first break, I came back there.
Okay, got it. It's gone. It's done. It's done. And that's a skill too. Just like you got to be able to just leave it where it lies and move on. And
that's it. And we're the great assessors. You know, that's one of the biggest things I see people struggle with is they'll start the webinar, they start the song, and they make a mistake that half the time the audience doesn't even notice, and they go up in their head and immediately that's garbage. And I can't believe I did that. And I'm like, you can't, no, stop.
Yeah.
We've got to trust. And I do this before I go on any call. When I come and teach anywhere, I just say this little prayer. Give me what they need to hear.
Yeah.
And I trust that I'm going to. And we've got to, I don't say, gosh, I hope I get in there and really impress everybody. And I hope they like me. And I hope James thinks I'm great. And I hope I do it perfect and deliver all. I go, no, I prepared. Give me the words I need to say.
That's it.
And that's how we invite people in from a voice perspective.
So good.
Is I'm gonna let you get close.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna be over here trying to get it perfect. And that's what people are seeking.
Mm-hmm. I'm reading this book. Blake, one of our students, recommended this to me. Actually, as a result of that, he came up to me after at BBD Live, and I'm reading it now. It's a book called Effortless Mastery. And it's by I forget the author's name right now, but he's a musician, lifetime musician. And what you are describing right now is exactly what he's saying about music, is like the more attachment you have to how good you sound and how good it is and how well you play, the worse you'll play.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's life. That's with everything. And he's like, when you don't care, that's when you play your best. And it says, because he talks from became like a Buddhist in the process, or at least he learned a ton of like spiritual principles and applied to music. So I'm just loving the book right now. But he's basically, it's like music is a gift from God. So you're just here to be a vessel to let it play through you.
Yeah.
And the moment you make it about yourself or needing to go down, well, ego is edging God out. So you're pinching God off. That's why it's not going to sound great. And I'm reading this book is really fascinating because I'm not a lifetime musician. So I'm not really literally resonating with the circumstances that the musicians that come to him are like so stressed out. They're like, their whole life is fixated on their next performance and they hate them. They're unworthy because their last performance tanked. And I'm like, good God, like that sounds awful. But we're doing it in our business, on our webinars and our latest launches. And it's our own art. It's our own music, just a different genre.
Yeah.
And it's all the same. I mean, it's so powerful. Tracy, this has been amazing. I want to wrap this by asking if you have any, we've gone deep. We've looked at all these things and we could obviously talk for 10 more hours, but I want to be mindful of your time. Do you have any quick of the tactical? I know we don't want to just put a veneer on the masks and that, I mean, are we running a risk by, is some of the because you've taught me some really cool tactical stuff. Is that a veneer? Is it not worth doing? Or are there things that we can start to do that do chip away at this and make a dent right now?
Yeah. It is, I do believe it is to a degree individualized.
Of course.
And so I'm always careful. But I get this question so many times that I have figured out a couple of ways, things that we can do to start getting in front of that mask. And it might not sound at all like what you think I'm going to say.
Okay.
The first one is, I want you to talk to people not like your ideal client. I want you to talk to somebody you care deeply about in your mind's eye. Because if I'm intimidated by you and I feel like I have to put my people pleaser on, my people pleaser mask, if I start talking to you and in my mind's eye I'm actually talking to my good friend Bob, that's going to bring me back to me.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things.
Someone you feel the most comfortable with.
Most comfortable
Wow.
with. Yeah.
That's a great hack.
It's a great hack and it works.
Yeah.
It works. Something else that we can think about is what do I want you to what is the experience I want you to have of me? Not what are my words going to be? What is James going to think about me? What do I want James to feel about me? Well, I want him to feel like he's known me his whole life. So I'm going to talk to him like I've known him my whole life. And I probably talked to you like that at that day, at that event, years ago when I walked right up to you. I probably talked to you that way, probably shaking in my boots. I'm going to go up and talk talk to James.
Yeah.
But I use these myself.
That's so good.
So what do you want that person to decide and feel about you the minute you talk to them?
That's so good. Okay. This came up for me.
Okay.
This is like gossip time. And obviously feel free to not say any names if you don't feel comfortable, but we know that there are a ton of big names out there that either have big shows, platforms, or podcasts. Are there any that you want to speak to really quickly that are like either nailing it or missing the mark? Like when you think of a big podcast, is there a name that comes to mind for you?
Let me think.
Like Joe Rogan is one of the biggest podcasts.
Yeah, Joe's
is something that he's doing is like he's nailed the voice, or is he missing the mark? But because he's got exposure and he's kind of been a celebrity for a long time and guests, like he's
So I've not worked with Joe,
right? And
could I work with Joe and could we play with
There's
some
always
nuances? For sure.
Absolutely.
But I think Joe is nailing it. I think I do, and I will tell you why. What you see is what you get.
Yeah.
You know, there's no mask ever.
Wow.
And so you're real clear on he's for you or he's your guy or he's not your guy.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, that's what people are seeking. I think the same thing. I think you're nailing it. I think that's why you're,
nice. Thank you.
people, what you see is what you get. And I tell people that. I'll say, he's just like that in real life.
Yeah.
That is for sure nailing it. I'm trying to think. I don't know that I listen to anybody that's not nailing it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
trying to think of some. There's a podcast that Jen had mentioned it's more like a girl, and it's like she's like, this one blew up, and I don't know anything about it. It was like the call me daddy or whatever gal. I don't know anything about her. Yeah, I'm getting the thumbs from Tracy. But someone like that who has like a huge audience,
But again, I go back to, I'll never say you can't be successful without this work. But I will 100% say you're leaving at least 30% of the people
But not only that,
behind.
what are you really defining as success?
Right.
Because, if attention is the currency, well, car accidents get attention.
Yep.
Train wrecks get attention. And I'm saying that literally and metaphorically. And I think something that, I know this has almost nothing to do with your topic, but in, roundabout way, everything, but it's been on my mind and I haven't ever made a full episode out of it. We exist, if we exist with coaches and personal brands, and our business is in the business of getting paid to help people, we swim in the same pool as what is labeled as these influencers, and they have a different business model. Their business model is attention. It's attention currency. If they get more eyeballs on their stuff, they get bigger brand deals, they make more money that way. And what I have seen so tragically happen is they get the big front end numbers. They get the eyeballs, and people will, because not all attention, as you've said in a way that is not really the way you've said it, not all attention is created equal. Sometimes people just want to watch something burn, right?
Yep.
And people in our industry that you and I are in will jump that line to do the thing for attention. And people will watch, but not say, this is my person. This is my leader. This is my mentor. This is my coach. And they'll get the views. They'll get the eyeballs. And I don't think there's a lot of people that don't get that.
And it's 100% true.
So success is not just a vanity metric or a top of funnel metric.
No.
It's, what success is? It's getting what you want, which are the sales and the clients and the impact and the results from your clients that you set out to get.
Yeah.
And anything else is not success, because success is getting what you wanted. And are you just doing this to get a bunch of attention?
Yeah.
Because negative attention is still attention. And now there's all this stuff of like people create rage baiting content and what was the other one I was going to think of? I don't know, but just like the drama and all that nasty stuff. It's like, well, that's attention.
Yeah.
Cringe content,
Yeah,
where you just like cringe watching them.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you think then someone's going to say, this person's so cringy, take my money?
Exactly.
So
exactly. And that's exactly what we're seeing. I call it the short game and the long game. And the short game, boy, it sure looks like they're doing, but let me tell you, they're not.
Yeah.
And every day, I bet somebody calls me and says, do you know so-and-so? Yeah, I know of him. I want to work with him, but I can't stand him. I can't listen, or meaning I like what they're doing, but I can't, that's not the long game. I wish I could find somebody that was really doing that, because I want to work with that kind of content. I want to work with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I cannot listen to that.
Like,
It's
I love
fabricated.
the topic.
I love the topic.
I love what they dive into, but that person.
But it's fabricated.
Yeah.
It's performance art.
Yeah.
It's, like you said, I love what you said, that we want to watch it burn down.
Yeah.
We want to watch it burn down.
Well, the first example of this, and I actually really loved it, and this is it'll date me a little bit in my industry, was the music video Friday. And this might be for your time on the internet, but about 12 years ago, maybe, there was this, I don't know the full story, but there was this young girl, I think she was in high school still, and she got a music video produced. And by all intents and purposes, it was awful. Like, it's super high produced, like it looks like it could be on TV and everything, and it was awful. And it broke the internet.
Yeah.
It was one of the most viral videos. I forgot how many millions of views in a couple of days. Why? Because people wanted to watch something awful. And then, of course, it's really sad. Like, she got bullied the crap out of her. She had to move schools, and like, that was really sad. And she's just a young girl who had a vision of like becoming a pop star and making music videos.
Yeah.
And it was very like, yes. I mean, it's what if a 17-year-old typical 17-year-old wrote a pop song. Like that's kind of what most would be.
Yeah.
But then maybe she had a rich dad to fund a really nice video. And
Yeah.
it was like the whole internet hated her, but it was also the most viewed video on the internet. And
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about is like, they watched it.
Yeah.
Not because they wanted more music from her.
Right. And it's part of that too is sense of belonging,
Yeah.
which plays into that as well. And we have to factor that in. Is that are the Kardashians, who I can say for sure have influenced many, but it goes back to that thing: are they really changing lives? You know, what is that real degree of success?
Like for the good, for the best.
For the good.
They're changing lives.
Yeah, they're changing lives, but for the good. So it's, you know, I want to learn that thing that guy's teaching. Like I was saying, I want to learn that content. I want to learn that skill. But that package is just no.
Yeah.
That's a no.
Yeah.
We're seeking real.
Right. And real, and I feel like there's layers to it too. Like there's something I can't quite put to words yet, which is like, there's something about, the only word I can come up with is like workability, where like that person's real and their life works. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, like a lot of the inauthenticity is they are trying to hide the mess.
Yes.
And sometimes, oftentimes it's like, well, you still have to clean up the mess.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's examples. I'm not here to name names, and this isn't to create drama. I don't want to do that, but there was an example of somebody who was giving marriage advice and then, you know, found out like their marriage was on the rocks, and people were really upset by that because they were, I get like whether that's true or not, I don't know the details, nor do I care. I just like always like to look at what can I learn from all of this, and people felt like you manipulated me, you gave me all this advice, like everything was okay, and it wasn't. And I think the realness to me encapsulates this. There's workability around, like if this whole last 90 minutes or so, however long we've been talking, your voice was going from cheerleader to let me prove you and convince you, it'd be the same thing. It's like, well, she hasn't figured it out herself.
Right.
You know, so, okay, it's great. It'll just go back to what you were saying before. Like, I like the content, but the person, because it's like, they're not congruent. The message is not also congruent in their lives. Like they haven't integrated. I think that's a better way for me to say it. They haven't integrated their own message. Yeah. And, you know, and by the way, just to go back to that story when that happened, I was so nervous to go through a divorce because I thought I thought I'd get like a lot of backlash.
Did you?
For it. And I was like, buckle up, you know, and because I did find myself, my brain went to a place of, well, if you're teaching, you know, success and all that, you have to have success in every area. And if some, you know, like divorce to me equated to failure. In a way it still does. I mean, you can put that label on. It's like, yeah, it's a failed relationship, but you know, the odds are that most relationships fail, you know, even before marriage. So, and I was like, I was really nervous, and that didn't happen.
It didn't happen at all.
No, at all.
No. And I think it's that it goes back to the masks. It goes back to, it goes back to the guitar. Yeah. You could have easily done the guitar and been like, well, I meant to do that.
Yeah.
But
no,
you
I didn't. Right.
And if you'd done, well, I meant to do that. That would have had a whole different response because you would have put up the mask of defense. Yeah. So
if I had proclaimed that everything was fine and I'm a marriage expert and then went through that, like that's
the difference. Yeah. We can, prime real estate is we can share in a wound. I think it's actually that we've been through something similar. Yeah. I think that's actually very, very powerful. But if I pretend like I've never been through it while you have, that's a different game. Right. And that's what I think that people are really sniffing out. Yeah. Whether
they even realize it or not.
That's why they're leaning into sound. because I'm going to hear if you're going to betray me if I lean in close enough. And again, it's going down subconsciously, but we've seen that happen time and time again. We went with the flash, we went with the short game, we went with the big name, we went with the thing, and we went, whoa, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. What do you, I mean, could just to, it's just, I keep having all these thoughts come up as I hear you talk, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So like, obviously you're noticing this shift. I've noticed that too. It's really apparent, but there's been big brands, big personal brands that have been around for a long time. And you just start to wonder, like, I'm trying to put the question together in real time here. Like, what drove those people? You know what I mean? Like, was it a different driver and the masks were there and people just couldn't sense it as well or something? You know what I mean? Because you see a shift of like, people are not into the same people. Do you see what I'm asking?
Yeah. And I'll tell you what I think from my own experience of allowing myself to get burned. Knowing that I could hear that I was going to get burned. I wanted to believe so badly in what they were selling me that it overrode what I knew to be true. And I think that's part of it, is I think we can turn a blind eye to get what we think we need. That's my initial thought, is I might even know, but I make this decision, is it worth it to try? And then I find out that I'm going to get burned.
Yeah. But those people that are just doing it to burn people or don't really care if they do, it's like the gig is up.
I really think it is.
Yeah.
I'm just seeing too much data that even people that aren't doing that, people that I've coached for years in companies that are sellers, are calling me going, okay, everything we've ever done or I've ever done, it's not working. What do we need to adjust now? And we go back and look at masks. We go back and look at where they're pushing. We go back and look at where they're trying to control an outcome, because people are just resistant to that now.
And I what I hear from you is almost like, obviously the why doesn't matter. It's just, that's what is, but I'm always fascinated.
Yeah.
What is causing that?
I know.
And there's like, maybe your answer to that would be like, well, when there's so much of it and people have had so many of those experiences of being burned, they're like, their BS meters up. Mine is my woo-woo spiritual answer, is that people are waking up. They're becoming more perceptive.
Yeah.
They're getting more sensitive, and they can sense it. They know they're waking up themselves, and they're like, something's off here.
Well, because James, people are still buying. I know you know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Everybody I work with, they come back at biggest launch ever. You're hearing it all day long.
Yeah.
So it's not that people aren't buying.
Yeah.
I think it's exactly like what you're saying. You're talking about it from a spiritual perspective. I'm talking about it from a sound perspective.
Right.
Is a minute ago, a year ago, I'm just going to ignore it because this guy's promising me this and all my friends are doing it. And I want to be a star so bad, I will jump into this. And you do that 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times, which is what many people have done. You're finally going to get it and go, maybe I need to do this differently. Maybe I need to listen differently or pause for a minute. But I also think, I haven't studied this, but I think it could probably be linked to the wound. You can make me worthy. I'll give you my money and I'll ignore what I think I hear in your voice.
Yikes. Yeah. Yeah, and you don't want an unhealthy codependent relationship with your clients or your coaches. That just doesn't sound good at all.
It doesn't, but yet it happens every day.
Oh my gosh.
It's happening all over. You can fix me. Here's all my money. Fix me. Well, I'm hiring you from a place of woundedness. And that's just rampant. I mean, that's the big work that we have to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that is, I think that's a really great point. I didn't even consider that people get jaded because that's the expectation they come in with, is like, okay, well, here's my mess, clean it up. And it's like, that's not how this is going to work. And there are people that are trying to do that, thinking that that's what being a great coach is.
Yes.
I'm like, no, that's just being an enabler and a martyr to your marketplace. And that's going to take you down and not going to help them. So now you lose 2 people over this. So wow, that's really good. Tracy, profound, amazing as usual. So much fun. I know we could keep going for a while. Thank you so much. What's the best place we can keep the conversation open with you?
I am Captivate the Room everywhere.
Yeah. Podcast,
Instagram.
.com.
Yes, captivatetheroom.com.
Beautiful.
I'm only Tracy Goodwin on LinkedIn. Everywhere else, I'm Captivate the Room.
I don't even know my LinkedIn password anymore, so I won't be connecting with you there. But that's good to know. And this is amazing. Anything else you want to share before we call it complete?
No, this was such a great conversation.
It was good. You're amazing per usual.
You're amazing. It was awesome.
I'm an amazing person at finding amazing people. Wow. I'm amazing at finding great people. That's all I'm amazing at.
Wow.
And I nailed it. I'm amazing. 10 out of 10 at finding people like Tracy. I did it, and my job is done. And I can't wait for everyone's feedback on this episode, because there's so many people that haven't experienced you yet and have no idea. I bring Tracy to my events. My bigger ones, my intimate ones. You've been to them all. You've been to the intimate mastermind, to our next level events, all the way up to 1,000 people in the room, BBD Live, and you just you blow people's minds because you can transform it in seconds. I forgot to ask you this question, so I'll just throw it in there at the end. 5-second answer on. I'm just gonna tee up so quickly. So people shouldn't be AIing their voices in their videos, because you can do that now.
I know.
I can take a sample of your voice and write a whole video script.
Oh yeah, and let me tell you,
how much are we robbing ourselves of the frequency that can come with that?
Well, there is no frequency, and
it's dead.
That's what I have. Because I was asked this question a lot.
Are you looking to start a business on the internet?
So I just did a study on a guy who did a side-by-side of his real voice and his AI voice. And I was like, I've got to find the difference. It's connection. It's frequency.
Yeah.
You can feel him here. You can't feel him here.
Yeah, of course not.
But if you just listen to the sound, so this means consciously, we may not be able to tell the difference, but subconsciously, 100%. In fact,
no,
James,
you can tell the difference.
AI is what's driving my business right now. Because I hear
inversely,
inversely. Yeah, literally.
Yes.
Because people are saying, how do I sound authentic in an AI world, Tracy?
Yeah.
That's literally what they show up saying.
Well, but here's the other thing you didn't even say is I've watched videos, ads that are AI, and you get lost in it because you go, something's off. Oh, is this AI? And then all your brain wants to do is say, is this AI? It is. Oh, look at that was weird. Wait, he said that same phrase very neutrally, and anyone else would have made it more of a question. And it was like, do you want to grow your business on the internet? He's like, wait, that is, and that's all I'm hearing now is my voice trying to figure out what it is, how they did it, versus when you're authentically in a conversation, you're in it with that person. If you're doing a great job, you're engaging with them. Yeah. And wow.
Yeah, do the work. Don't get the AI app for your voice.
Yeah.
Do the work.
Yeah.
Because that's a short game again.
I know.
Don't play the short game. Play the long game.
There's amazing features in ways we can use AI.
Yes.
But replacing your message and your voice would be the worst idea you could possibly do.
Well, you said, is there anything I'd leave you with? Here it is.
Yeah.
Your voice is no different than a thumbprint.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yeah, it's your unique signature.
Only yours. Yeah. And that's why we've got to stop masking it and AIing it. You have to find it.
Wow. Amen. Thank you. Tracy Goodwin, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And please reach out to Tracy and myself. I'm always looking for feedback on our guests, and I know Tracy's going to love the feedback and your favorite takeaways. That's going to mean a lot to her. So shoot her a message. Make sure to give her a follow and connect with her. Reach out to her, find a way to work with her. I've worked with her. She is has to go down as one of the most impactful coaches that I have ever had in my business career. That's pretty amazing. And we just did 6 weeks, 6 sessions.
Yeah.
And that was, whoa. Like it still sits with me. So find a way to make that happen and work with Tracy in 2025 or beyond. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you next time here on the Mind Your Business podcast. Take care. Having and selling digital products is hands down the most profitable, scalable, and fulfilling business model if you're going to run business on the internet. Think about it. What else allows you to create something once and then continue to get it into the hands of thousands upon thousands? The problem is, if you don't have the right strategy or effective approach for selling it, it can be a lot of work with little result, but not in our community. Once a year, every single year, I pull back the curtain and pop open the hood to my 8-figure-a-year digital product-based business so we can show you exactly how we run this business today and at every stage of growth. This 3-part training series shows you a radically different approach to starting, running, and scaling the crap out of your online business so that it's profitable from the get-go. Plus, you're going to hear from so many of our students in the latest and greatest online strategies, funnels, and sales mechanisms that are working today. If you are an online coach or you're creating or want to create digital products, this is the training that's going to change everything for you. So all you need to do, head on over to businessbydesign.net and join our priority list right now. Once you do that, there's a ton of additional training, bonuses, and case studies to help you along your way from now until June. Once again, that's www.businessbydesign.net. Thanks so much, and we'll see you June 6th.